Hi everyone. Give me 1 second and we'll start here. Great. Thanks for joining. We're going to give it a minute or two just for everybody to join. Looking good. Hope everybody's having a good day. I had a good one. Got a chance to take some photos. Any day with I can get out to take some street photography is a good day. Hope you had a good day. We'll just give it a minute or two and then we'll get started. Comment in the chat, when's the last time you had a chance to take some photos, go for a walk? I'm trying this year to do it as often as possible, preferably every day. That's my goal anyway. I've been mostly getting to it. Not photography wise. Oh well, if you had a good day, that's a good start anyway. We'll give it a minute or so more for people to join and then we're going to get started. Today we're doing presets. So presets are really amazing in Lightroom. There's some things that I don't like about presets and the way people are selling presets and using presets, but we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about the correct way to use presets and why it can really change your editing workflow and also save you hours of editing. So we'll look at all that. Just in the chat while we're waiting, just comment if you're using presets currently. Are you using presets for your editing? Yes or no? No, don't know how to. Okay. Yes, Oscar, you using presets. Great. Okay. So let's get started. I think hopefully everybody's joined that wants to join. Otherwise, they can just fall in with us. Okay. No, not yet. Hi. Hello. Hello. Welcome. Okay. So we're talking about presets. Just before we start, I'm going to show you a couple of things connected to presets, why we would use them, why we would not use them, and some misconceptions as well about presets. So let's hop into Lightroom. See, Lightroom. There we go. Lightroom. Okay. So let me first show you what presets aren't. If I open this image in Lightroom, I've got something right over here that says profile and it says Adobe Color right now. So that's my color profile. Color profiles are not presets, although they are sort of related. There's two main ways in Adobe Lightroom, in the new Lightroom, the mobile Lightroom, the tablet Lightroom, and the cloud-based one on your computer, that you can get different looks applied completely to your image. Okay. So the one way, hold on 1 second. So the one way of applying a different look to an image that you took with your camera or your phone is to apply a different color profile. And this is where we would do it. Okay, so as you open your raw image or your JPEG image, whatever image you've got, you'll see there's color profile in the edit panel right at the top. So this color profile is very similar to what you'd find on your actual camera. On your camera, you would find profiles like it might say vivid, it might say natural, it might say portrait, it might say monochrome or black and white. So you've got all these built-in color profiles, and mostly what they change is the colors, and sometimes also they might adjust things like contrast. On some cameras, these profiles will also allow you to adjust things like contrast, sharpening, what else might be in there? Noise reduction could be in there. A lot of these separate options would only be applied if you're saving a JPEG. If you're saving a raw image, then it won't be applied, but usually it would be written into the metadata that's inside that file so that Lightroom can read it. And if you go to your profile right here, you go to browse and you go to camera matching, you'll find your camera profiles right in there, and you'd be able to match whatever profile you had selected in your camera. And also on your import settings, you could tell Adobe Lightroom as you import your raw images to apply whatever the color profile was that you had set in the settings of your camera. So it will come in with that exact same one. So if you select portrait in your camera, when Adobe Lightroom imports that raw image, it will apply portrait again, and a similar portrait to what your camera does. So if you've got a Nikon camera and the portrait profile looks different from somebody else's portrait profile on their Canon camera, the colors might be a little bit different, the way Nikon wants it or the way Canon likes it, or Sony does it differently. What Lightroom will do is it will apply a portrait profile, but not the Adobe standard portrait profile. It will apply one that looks like or exactly like your camera built-in one. So if you like the looks of maybe something like landscape color profile inside of your camera, then you can make Adobe apply that same one to your images on import. Okay, so that's under import settings. I'll just quickly show you where it is. So if we go to the little three dots in the corner, we can go to app settings, we can go to import, and right here at the bottom you'll see it says camera settings. So if I import any pictures by popping my SD card into my iPad reader or onto my computer, it will then import with whatever my camera was set to. I can also override this and choose something else. Something like Adobe default will bring it in with the Adobe default color profile, and that's the Adobe one, not the one matching your camera. Okay. You can also apply a preset that you create on import. So as we create these presets, if you find that you do something all the time on every single photo that you import from your camera, then you can create a preset for that, and you can apply that preset as you import them. So you don't even have to go and select the images and apply a preset. You can just make Adobe do it on import, which will save you a lot of time. Okay, so that's where you would find that. So that's your import settings. Then these color profiles, right now this image is set to Adobe Color, so that's the standard color profile built into Lightroom. I could set it to Adobe Portrait, Adobe Landscape, Vivid, Monochrome, whatever I need. That's right here at the top, and that will give me already a different look, but this is not a preset. A preset is more than just the color profile. The color profile will just be these different color profiles, and it won't affect any of the other settings or the editing settings in Lightroom. So if we go and adjust the light, for instance, exposure, contrast, these things, that won't be part of a color profile. Okay. The presets might include any of these things that we find right here in our editing panel. So this editing panel, if we change any of these things, we will be able to then save it out as a preset and apply those again by applying that preset to images. Now, just a word of caution. So one thing that we've seen and that we know is quite often people would be selling presets online. So you'd be following a photographer. They've got a very specific look for their photography. They use presets. and they might be selling these presets. So they would have preset packs maybe for a specific Instagram look or whatever they're doing, wedding preset packs. A lot of people are selling presets. You can also sometimes get free preset packs, and it's all Lightroom presets. The word of caution I've got is just that a lot of these presets, they change a lot of things in your photo, and they might, the person who actually created that preset started with images that look different to yours. So for instance, if they are a wedding photographer and they're mostly using their presets for the wedding photos they take, you taking landscape photos and you're applying that preset, it might completely ruin your image because their preset might be biased towards doing things like skin softening and applying specific looks to skin, the skin tones, those sort of things that are important in wedding photography maybe. But when you apply that to, let's say, a landscape image, might soften things like the detail in the foliage or the grass or the rocks and things like that that you might not want. That's one thing that could happen. Then another thing is, and you'll see it as you start creating your own presets as well, a lot of the time when you're starting with an image, if your settings are very similar between images, you can apply the same preset if it's a very involved preset that has a lot of changes in an image. But as soon as you go to a different environment, you're moving from inside to outside, you're moving to different camera settings maybe for different conditions. Maybe you're shooting midday versus late at night, or all these different scenarios. You'll see that the preset that works on one image might not work on the next one. It would start falling apart and your image might look pretty terrible. So that's just a word of caution about using preset packs and things. It might look great on another photographer's work and he might be selling those presets, but as soon as you apply it to your own work, that's starting from a different place, it might look very different. So for instance, let's say a specific photographer always uses aperture priority and he underexposes by a stop. Now he builds a preset on top of that to get a specific look. You might not be shooting in the same way. You might be shooting with different settings, not underexposing by a stop, and then his preset's not going to be working for you. So just keep all these things in mind. The only time I like looking at presets, I dig into Lightroom a lot. I like seeing what other people are getting from Lightroom, how they're editing, what they're using. I pick up a lot of tips watching videos about people editing in Lightroom. So I like doing these things. I like looking at presets that other people build as well, trying to figure out why they did things. So that's the only time that I would look at somebody else's preset or play around with their presets, basically to figure out why they did something, what's the motivation behind it, and what the end result is for them. And then maybe incorporating it into some edits that I do. But for my own work, I would only be using my own presets that I've built myself over time. And a lot of the time I would build specific presets for specific things that I do. So let's say I'm doing a lot of family photo shoots in studio with similar lighting. I might build a preset to help me edit those images. And when I do a similar shoot, I'll use a similar preset. Maybe street portraits I shoot in a specific way in black and white, and there's a couple of things I always adjust in those. I might build a preset for that and I would use it on similar images. But the key there is using those presets on similar images, or just as a starting point and then doing my edit from there. So that's just the thing that I think you should keep in mind, is that a specific preset that does a specific thing does it to that image or similar images, and it might fall apart using it in other circumstances. So we'll have a look at that, and also creating your own presets, because I think that's where the real value in presets lie. Let's hop into Lightroom again. So we've got our first image. We're going to do a couple of edits on it and then save out a preset so that we can use it again. Okay, there we go. Again, just as previous sessions, if you've got any questions, just pop it into the chat on YouTube Live. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we'll get started with our first edit. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to First start with the light panel. As previous sessions, we're sort of working from top to bottom in our editing panel just to see what we want to do. I'm going to, let's say we're doing a moody street sort of look for this image. And to get that, what I'll do is I'll just drop my highlights to get my sky to be blue again. You'll see where we started was right there. My sky is a little bit pale and washed out. One way to get it to look more blue is just drop your highlights, and we've got a better blue in our sky. Okay, I'm going to open up the shadows again just to get more detail there. And then to make it more moody and contrasty, I'm going to drop my black point a little bit to the left. Okay, so that brings back some of that contrast we lost with the previous two adjustments. Okay, that's looking good. We're going over to color. Going to do a couple of things with color. We can increase our saturation, and from previous sessions you'll remember that increasing saturation when you're doing a portrait image might not be the best idea, because skin tones can go all funny if you just push up saturation. It's a better idea to increase vibrance instead of saturation when working with skin tones. But in this case, it's just a street image. I'm pretty happy with that. That's looking good. It's nice and vibrant now, also quite moody and contrasty. I'm liking this look. We're going to move over to our color grading panel, and shadows, I'm going to go for something that's nice and cold. Our midtones might go a little bit colder as well for our midtones, and our highlights, we might be able to just put in a tiny bit of warmth into these areas. If you look at these areas, they're going a little bit orangey, and the darker areas are going blue. So that's what we're going for. It's just that contrast between the warmer colors and the colder colors in this case that I think works well for this image. And we're going to close our color grading. That would be enough there. We're going to look at effects. I'm going to just pop in a little bit of texture to get some texture from this foreground area. There's a lot of texture there in this road. I'm just trying to get a little bit more of that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is just introduce a tiny bit of a vignette just to darken the corners a bit. Okay, I think that is perfectly good. I'm going to be doing a tiny bit of sharpening, so I'm just pushing it up to about 60. I'm moving my masking slider around, as you can see, and then pressing my finger on the image so I can see what I'm sharpening. And right about there is about what I want to sharpen, and I'm leaving it there. So again, I don't want to sharpen the whole image. I'm just sharpening parts of it, which gives you a better effect. The contrast between unsharpened areas, softer areas, and sharpened areas is actually what gives you that illusion of real sharpness. If you just sharpen the whole image, you sort of lose that effect of being sharp. Okay. Noise reduction, I'm not even going to do in this image. I'm happy with noise, and that would do the edit. That would be the edit for this image. I'm pretty happy, looking good. My colors are looking good. It's contrasty, it's moody, it's a sort of a darker image, and I like the look of it. Now, how do we get this same look onto another image in future? If I do a similar image walking around in town, we can actually save a preset. So on the mobile version, this little icon here right next to the red dot that we've got there, or the orange dot in this case, you see that icon there with the two little circles. That's our presets. Okay, you can also find it on the desktop version of Lightroom, and it's just got a preset button. So what we're going to do on the mobile version is we're going to click on presets. Now we're in the presets menu. This is where we can find all our presets that that's actually built into Lightroom, or presets that I've previously created for myself to do different things when I edit. Right now we're going to go to the little 3-dot button in the corner, and that's basically where we manage our presets once we're in the presets menu, okay, or the presets tab. So we're going to click on that. Now we've got a couple of options there, and the very first one is create preset, which is what we're going to use now. We can also go to manage presets, or this last option just hides partially compatible presets. So what's happened now is, because your Lightroom Classic is a very different version of Lightroom from the Lightroom mobile version, or the newer Lightroom version, the cloud-based one, some of the old Lightroom presets, there's steps inside of them that might not be compatible with the newer Lightroom, and if you load in those presets, they'll actually show. And if you click this button, it will hide those ones that are only partially compatible and not fully compatible with the new Lightroom. Okay. Yeah, so that's the hide and show one. It's just if there's any presets that's not fully compatible, it will just hide them for you. Okay. We'll go to create a preset in this case, because we've already done our edit and we want to create a new preset from that. So we go create a preset. Now we can give this preset a name. Okay. I'm going to go training Moody, and that's going to be my preset name. We can go preset group. So we can put it in any of the preset groups that I've previously created, or we can create a new preset group. I'm just going to call it training, so all our new presets will be in one group so we can find them. And now the important part is we can select different things. We can select nothing and then just click the things that we want to bake into our preset. So for instance, if we adjusted something like our exposure because we're underexposed or overexposed in the original image, we might not want to bake that into our preset. Why? Because the next image might be perfectly exposed, and if we apply the preset, now it's going to go the wrong way. Okay. So think about it. Our original image, let's say, was overexposed and we dropped the exposure. Now we create a preset and that drop of exposure is built into our preset. The next image we open up is perfectly exposed. We apply the preset and now it's going to overexpose our image because that image wasn't underexposed. So we have to think a little bit of what do we want to build into our preset. And in a lot of cases, you only want to apply a couple of things at a time, because we can also stack our presets. We can apply multiple presets to the same image if we wanted to. Okay. So let's start with, let's see what was modified. So if we select the select button here at the top and we click modified, it will show us all the things that we actually modified on this image since it was imported. So we applied the profile Adobe color. That's one thing that was modified. Then if we open up this light panel, we can see we modified highlights, shadows, blacks. If I wanted to bake this into our preset, I would leave it as is, and I'm going to leave it. Color, we did a few things to color. I'm going to want to apply that as well. And the same for effects. I can check what's going to be included. I can check detail, that's going to be included. Optics, lens correction, that's going to be included. So all these things that we've got checked under all these options will then be included in our preset. If there's anything we want to exclude, we can just uncheck them and they would be excluded from this preset. What that means is any sliders that's included in this preset that we've moved, when we apply the preset, they will move to the same place that we did when we created this preset. And it will override anything you did to that image previously. So for instance, if we move the black slider on an image and then apply this preset we're going to create, it will override that and move the black slider to where the preset says it needs to be. Okay, so just remember that. Usually when we're using presets, you start with the preset and then do the rest of your edit to change things as you like. You wouldn't do your complete edit, fixing things and whatever, and then apply the preset, because the preset could then go and override some of the things you already did. Okay. So we're going to create this one. I'm going to do yes, thank you. Now we've created this preset and we can go and apply it to a different image. Okay. I'm just clicking done here. let's move on to our next image. This is a very different image, but if we wanted to, we can now go and apply the same preset to this image. Okay. If there's any questions, just pop it in the chat and I'll handle those. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to presets right here. We're going to click on presets. Okay. Now we're going to go to training, which is this group here that we just created. There we'll find our training Moody, which is the one we just created. And if I click on it, it will apply training Moody to this image. Okay. So if we go back, let's take a look at our light panel. I'm going to press undo. So that would undo applying our preset, and you'll see all my sliders are right here, all in the middle. I haven't touched this image, nothing is edited. If I do redo, now our preset is applied again, and you'll see all these sliders move. So they move to the exact same place we had in this image. So all the sliders that I moved and the edits I did in this image, I've now transferred to this one. Okay. Now I know we can also go and just copy settings that we changed from one image to the next. But let's say you do a wide variety of photography. You do some portraits, you do some studio things, you do some street photography, you do some real estate. You don't want to go and find the perfect image that you did months ago, then copy those settings to whatever you're doing today. It's a lot faster just creating these presets so that when you're doing a portrait again, you apply your portrait preset and there you go. It does a lot of edits all by itself, and then you can go and change things that you want. So in this case, we've now applied our preset, and what I can do is I can change things to make them a little bit differently. So I might want to drop my exposure a tiny bit, my color, let's say my color grading, I might want to change my midtones to warmer, which we didn't do in the previous one. But our preset gives us a good starting point because we've just applied our preset to this image. Now we can go through all the different things that we would normally go through and do our own edit in this. I might not want to add all that texture, but I might want to do a little bit of clarity if I wanted to on this image. So our preset just gave us a good starting point. It gave us a little bit of that look. Now we can actually improve on that and do our own edit for the next image. So it's a very nice way of giving yourself a couple of starting points if you find yourself doing similar edits again and again and again. Then another nice thing is we don't need to bake in a lot of settings. So for instance, in this preset we created, let's go back to presets and let me just show you. If I go create preset, you'll see there's a lot of sections. If I go modified, there's a lot of sections that's now got the blue icons on the side, which means we've put all these things into our preset. All these things that we can open up and have a look at here on the side, they're all baked into our preset. The one way that I very often use presets is just to do a couple of things in the preset and name it as such, so that I can just quickly do 2-3 things without affecting the whole edit that I'm busy with. Okay, so for instance, let me show you something that we might want to do with this next image. Okay, so let's say this image. Let's do a couple of quick edits. Let's straighten it out. I think this image will look really good in black and white, so let's do a black and white edit on this. I'm going to go Adobe Raw, Adobe Monochrome, so we've got a monochrome start for our image. Okay, I'm going to increase my contrast because I think it will look good in this image. As you can see, if I go left in the contrast, I see more detail. Going right actually pushes my shadows to be darker. I actually like that a lot. Okay, so we're going for a darker, moodier one. I'm going to move my black also a little bit to the left to get it really dark and moody. My whites I might bring up a little bit. That's looking good. So I'm pretty happy with my light. Now what I did to the light here, I might not want to do to all images, but in this case, that's the look I'm going for. Color, I'm not going to touch. Effects, we might want to add a tiny bit of clarity and a tiny bit of texture, not too much. The tiniest bit of vignette there. Then I want to add quite a bit of grain. I like a bit of a grainy black and white image. I think that just enhances the image quite a bit. Detail, I'm going to do a bit of sharpening and masking, and I'm touching my screen again to see the masking. If you're editing on a laptop or on a desktop computer, you can hold Alt while moving the masking slider. That will give you that same effect where you can see what's being sharpened. I'm happy with that. I'm not going to be doing any noise reduction. I think in an image like this, if there is any noise, it's actually quite nice, similar to the grain. So now I've got my edit the way I want it, and I'm going to create a preset to do some of these steps, but not all of them. Okay, so let's go to presets. Let's go to the 3 dots in the corner again. I'm going to go create preset. Now I want to start with none selected. So I click the little drop down next to select, and I select none. So you can see no blocks are selected. If I create a preset now, it means nothing will happen to the image. Absolutely nothing will be applied to this image. I'm going to go training for the name, black and white. Okay. So this is our black and white preset that we can now apply to different images. Let's go to our training group that we previously created. So it will be sitting in that group just for us to find it easier. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the very first one. Now we've got a blue tick mark next to Adobe Monochrome. Okay. So this means if I apply this specific preset with only this in, it will just switch to the different color profile whenever I apply it to an image. So it will just go from whatever it was, maybe it was a color image, and it will just make it monochrome. What else might we want to include? So I'm going to go to light. Maybe the extra contrast, that contrast that we bumped up, maybe we want to include that. I'm not going to include any of the other adjustments to the light because I might want to do that in my edit itself. Okay, what else could we include? I'm not going to touch anything else. Effects I'm going to leave. If I did any effects on the other edit, I want to preserve those things. Maybe just grain, because we bumped up the grain for this specific look. So what I do want to do is I just want to override whatever the grain is on the other images. Most likely there's no grain, and this will then include this extra grain that we put in. Okay, what else? Detail, maybe we want to do the sharpening, maybe not. Let's leave the sharpening so I can do that on the actual image when I'm editing it, and that should be enough. So I'm happy with that. Why is it not giving me my name? Training being black and white. Okay, so this is everything I want to include in my preset. I'm going to click the check mark in the upper right corner. There we go. Now I've created this preset. Maybe I want to do something else as well and include that as a different preset that I can use in images. So let's say I want a quick way to do a border around an image. Maybe we want a white border all the way around this image, just to get a specific look. We can do that in Lightroom. So what we're going to be doing is going out of presets, we're going back to our editing panel. I'm going to go to effects. We're going to put a white vignette on. So you can see I'm moving vignette all the way to the right. Okay. By doing that, I've just got this complete white round vignette. Now what we're going to do is decrease the roundness to make it go closer to the corners. Because we're looking for a border. We can decrease the feather if we want to get it more pronounced on that border. We can also go and change the midpoint a little bit if we wanted to. That's probably a good place to be. So now we've gone and put a white border around our image. Okay. Let's go back to presets. Let's go back to the 3 dots in the corner. Let's go create preset. And I'm now going to create a preset that the only job this preset does is it creates that little white border for me. That's the only thing it's going to do. Okay. So I want to go to select. I want to say none. I'm going to go to effects. I'm going to go to vignette. And that's the only thing I'm going to have inside this whole preset. We're going to go training, white border. We're going to put it in the group training. Oh, for some reason it keeps throwing out the name. Training. Every time I select something else, the name goes away. But I think that's it. We're good to go. Now we've created our preset. All good. And that preset will now be available in other images. So now if I go to my next image, which is a very similar image, we could just go to presets. Inside of training, we've got a couple of presets already. So now if I click on our training black and white, we'll see our black and white one. So now this image is in black and white, and we've applied that extra contrast, the extra grain, everything that we put into this preset. What we can also do is we can undo that. We can do our moody one that we created previously. So that's our moody one. It's applied the preset that we created, the very first preset with the change in the colors, change in the contrast. That's now applied to this. And we can keep our moody presets applied and then just click on border, and it will go and apply on top of our moody one. It will apply the border. So now we've got our white border also on this image. So you can see how powerful this is when you're editing images in Lightroom. You can stack multiple presets. So you can make a preset just for fixing skin maybe. You can make another preset for changing the colors to something that you like. There's all these different ways of doing your edits and breaking it down into components, creating presets for them, and then just selecting the ones you want. So if you want to add contrast and grain, for instance, and you do that very often, you can make a preset for that. But you can make another preset for making something black and white, another one for having a nice faded color look maybe. And you can mix and match them. So you can apply the faded color one and then apply something like more grain and contrast on top of that. It just all depends on what you want to do. So you don't have to just stick to one preset per image. You can actually put them on top of each other. Just remember, when you're looking at different presets, it's actually putting them all on the image. So you have to click undo to not do that. So we'll go undo, and we're back to our original image. So for instance, if I go moody and then black and white on top of that, we've actually got double contrast because our black and white had extra contrast, our moody had extra contrast. So it's putting that slider all the way. So just some of our adjustments would then be coming from two different presets. So just keep that in mind. It's the one preset might move something to a specific point on the slider, the other one might move it a different place. So if you're stacking presets, just make sure that you're putting them in the order you want, and also make sure that you do want to stack presets. If you click on a preset in the preset list, let's say I clicked on border and I don't want it, I rather want the black and white, I have to do undo and then click the black and white one. Otherwise, if I go border black and white, it won't. It will pick one of them. So if I do border and I click done, sorry, that's how you stack them. And now black and white, done. So you have to click done in between if you want to stack them. So that's actually makes a little bit more sense. So the way to stack these edits is to click done and then go presets again. So I'm going to do undo, undo. This is our original image, and let's say I want to stack our presets. I go to presets, I click one, let's say Moody, and I click done. So now Moody is applied and it's into the edit. I'm going back to presets, I'm clicking border and done. So now we've got Moody as well as border both stacked on top of each other inside this edit. So it did the one preset and then it did the second preset. Let's go back to the original. I'll show you another version of it that we can do with ours. So let's say I want to do black and white, and I click done. Now we've got black and white. I go back to presets, I go border, done. So now we've got a black and white one with the border. So this just shows you every time you click done, it does that preset, and you can go back to presets and do another one. So you can create a preset for sharpening if you do the same sharpening very often. You can create your own preset for landscapes if you do a specific edit a lot on landscapes, and you can just keep on doing these different things. Let me show you another image, and we'll do something completely different for this one. Let's do a lot of people do HDR photography, and with a raw image there's actually a lot of dynamic range, and you can do sort of a fake HDR if you wanted to. Let me do it on this image. Okay, so as an example, as something like a fake HDR or an HDR look from just the raw image, let's go to light. I'm going to just lower my exposure a tiny bit. I'm going to drop my highlights all the way. I'm going to open my shadows all the way and just make sure that we've got a good exposure. Then we go to color, and we're going to increase our saturation, a little bit of vibrance as well, quite a bit. So you'll see there's lots of detail in the shadows now, like you would find with HDR. There's lots of details in the highlights as well, like you would find with HDR. It's not a contrasty image, it's a lot of detail in it. We can also go to effects and add a lot of texture to make it even look more like an HDR image, a little bit of clarity. So you'll see it starting to get that real HDR look. I might just drop my exposure a tiny bit more. And it's sort of a fake HDR over edited sort of look. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but let's make our own preset for this if we wanted to do this. I'm going to go again to create a preset. We will select modified. So everything that we modified, it will now put into this preset. We'll go to training as the group, and we will give it a name, training HDR. Done. Created. Now we've got this fake HDR look that we baked into a preset. If I go to another image like this one, we can go to our presets. We can go to our training presets, and we can see what this fake HDR look does to it. So that was the original color image, and that's our fake HDR applied to it. So you'll see there's a lot more texture, a lot more detail in the shadows, a lot more detail in the highlights. We've basically brought this whole raw image dynamic range back into what we can see in a normal sort of JPEG image. So this is just a one click and you get this HDR look and feel. Okay. It also works well for landscapes if this is the sort of look you're going for. And again, beforehand, before you create these edits, before you create your own presets, you need to think about what sort of look you're looking for. This bright, high detail look is not for everybody. It might be your style and it might be your look. It's just another option. We might want to go just for that moody street look that we had previously. And let's undo all our edits and just go for moody. So this is our moody street preset that we did previously. Or we might think, oh no, our black and white is looking better. So this is a good start for a black and white edit. And we might go and adjust things inside the edit itself, but the preset will give us a good start, save us a lot of time adding all these things that we keep on doing. So that's sort of my rule for creating presets. As soon as I find myself doing a similar thing over and over in over multiple days, multiple shoots, if I see that I very often apply one setting to my images and that I like that one setting, I would create a preset for that look, and I would then pop that preset on similar images that I shoot in future, and then start my edit from there, and it just saves me a lot of time. Okay. Now, the last thing on presets is how do we manage our presets? How do we import presets that we buy or get from somebody else? How do we export our presets if we want to give it to somebody? Let's have a look. Okay. So if we are in our presets menu, we can go to, let's say, these presets, and let's say our border preset we want to export, give it to somebody else, or move it to a different computer or mobile device. So there's a little 3 dots next to all these presets. So if we click on one of these 3 dots, we can delete them, we can update with current settings, or we can rename them. Where's the manage presets? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so the one thing that I can see right now is with our presets, on a mobile device, it's actually not going to allow me to export or import. Let me show you. I'm going to show you on my laptop exactly how to do that. Give me 1 second. I'm just switching cameras here. One second. I'll do it. Oh. Got it. Okay, we're up. Okay, so on my laptop, that would obviously be the place where if we wanted to export or import our how can you test the preset to see how it looks before it's applied? Okay, see, you say I've answered it, but I can show you as well. So once we get to our images and our presets, when you're looking at the desktop version or the laptop version of the new Lightroom, you'll see there's a preset button right here. I can click presets. There we go. So we've got our presets right here. Going to go to my presets. We are looking for our training. Got our training one here. I think my laptop is still, it's got some different presets right here, but let me show you on any one of these. So if I go to a preset and I right click on it on my laptop, you'll see that there's an export button here. So any preset that I create, I can then go and export that preset. If I click on it, it will ask me where to save it. You'll see it goes, and this is where, so I can save it to wherever I want on my computer or connect a drive. I can give it a name, and this XMP file is your preset. That XMP file you can then import into Lightroom again on somebody else's machine, and they've got that same preset. Okay, so if somebody else needs to edit your images for you, or you want to give a fellow photographer a specific preset, this is the way to export it. I'm just going to cancel that. So again, on your laptop, on your desktop, you just right click and you can export that preset. Now, similarly, we can import presets. So if we buy a preset, if we get a preset from somebody else, we can also import on the laptop or desktop. Oh, just one thing on this. The import and export we're doing on the laptop or on the desktop in our Lightroom, but this is the new Lightroom. And as your images will also sync through to your mobile devices, your presets will do the same. So if I go to my laptop and I import a preset that I bought from somewhere or I got from somewhere or that I've created previously, I go and import this preset, and it's part of my presets library inside of my laptop's presets menu. Once I open my Lightroom on my phone or on my iPad, that preset will be there as well. So it goes through the cloud, through Adobe Cloud. All your presets are synced there, and it pushes it to your mobile devices as well. So don't worry about not being able to apply the preset when you're editing on your phone. If you created that preset on your laptop or imported it on your laptop and you saved it inside of Lightroom, you'll be able to find it on your mobile devices as well as soon as it syncs through. Okay, so it just takes a couple of minutes generally, and you'll find that same preset on your mobile device, which is great. So you can create that preset anywhere. The import and export is basically on the desktop and laptop version of the new Lightroom. But the creation of presets you can do on your phone, you can do on your tablet, and it will also sync back through to your desktop. Okay, I hope that helps. So if you want to import a preset that you got from somewhere or that you created previously, you can also on the, let me just show you my laptop again. So we'll go to my laptop. There's a little, there's a couple of buttons for organizing your presets as soon as you're in the presets menu. Again, on the laptop, you get the presets menu with this button. You can go to the plus and create a preset similar to what we just did on my iPad and save it under a group and a name. Or we can go to these three little dots. We can go to create presets. Again, you get the same menu for creating. You can name it. Manage presets, you can switch some presets off. So maybe you created a preset previously, but you're not using it on that device. You can just switch it off and it won't display, but it will still be inside of your Adobe account, and you can switch it back on to get it back. Sometimes you maybe get a preset back from somebody and there's too many. You can switch some off and just the ones you use will be displayed. And then you can also go to import presets. Import presets does exactly that. It just gives you an import menu. You can go and point it to a directory where you've got presets saved. These would be the XML files, and it will just import it with the correct name that you previously called it or whatever the person who created it called it, and it will be available inside of your presets. What it will then do is sync through to all your other devices. Okay. We're going to jump into the questions just now. About finished here. Just the last one again, we can hide partially compatible presets. So if we hide those, it will just hide any presets that aren't 100% compatible with this version of Lightroom. Generally means it's a preset that was created a long time ago for a previous version of Lightroom and things have changed. Some of those things aren't applicable anymore. Okay. And that's it for that. Let's hop back to this view. Let's look at some questions. Okay. Is there any rule-based presets, e.g. apply 30% noise reduction if ISO equals 100? No. There aren't rule-based presets. That's something that's maybe more closely related to what you would find in Photoshop. In Photoshop, you can do some script-based well, you can create scripts, so then it does specific things to an image and you can just run that script again, and there you can do some rules and do specific things. In Lightroom, they're not rule-based. If you create a preset and you've moved the slider somewhere and you save that slider into the preset, it will then, when you apply the preset, move that slider to the exact same value. Okay. So you'll find it doing the exact same, whatever you did, contrast or exposure or something. So you have to think ahead of time, what do you want to do by yourself in the edit, and what do you want the preset to override? You just want to override some things. Generally, you don't want to override the whole thing because every image is different. So the things that you generally change in various ways between images. So let's say you don't always do the same thing with exposure. You look at the image and you change your exposure based on what it looks like. Then you don't want to have exposure baked into your preset. You want to adjust it by yourself. So your preset will not include exposure. So things like that. You just want to put into that preset what you want those sliders to be. So no, they're not rule-based. They are absolute values on sliders in most cases. Okay. One thing that I can tell you, if you're an advanced Lightroom user, and I do this pretty often, there's an auto button in Lightroom where it will just do things, move some of your color sliders, like your saturation, and then basically all of your light sliders. So let's have a quick look at my iPad again. So if we look at my iPad and we go to edit, so these things under our light panel would be affected by the auto button. So the auto button is here, and it will move these things to where Adobe thinks they should be, and it will also do vibrance and saturation. In this case, it's a monochrome image, so you can't do it, but it will also move vibrance and saturation on a color image. And because of that auto, and sometimes if I'm doing a lot of images, maybe an event, I might rely on the auto to just do a basic edit and then apply presets on top of the auto. And for that reason, I might not want to change any of these sliders under my light panel. Because if you think about it, I go through 100 images and I apply auto, and it adjusts my light and it makes the exposure perfect and everything's looking good. Now I put a preset on and I change some of these light sliders and I mess up my image again. So I take away what Adobe's auto did. So a better way, let's say I start with auto and I see that all the images under auto are just a little bit dark for me. Maybe for this event I want bright and airy images. Instead of moving my exposure slider here, which will actually be set by auto, what I would do in that case is I would go to my curves. So auto does not affect your curves. So in a case like this, let's say I want my preset to brighten up my image. When I apply the preset, I would brighten up my image by using the curve. So if you're an advanced user and you know how to use curves, it's very often a good idea not to use your light and your color sliders, but rather use your curves and bake that into your preset. What that would do is if Adobe's auto or myself, if I adjust things in my light to get my exposure correct, let's say there was an issue with exposure on the image, now I fix that exposure, I can still apply my preset, which won't touch any of those sliders, but what it will do is it will apply this curve. So let's say I want to just get some contrast. I could do like the normal, let's get some contrast in this image, and it will apply that curve. So I would save the curve into my preset with some other things that I want baked in, but I won't save anything under the light or color except for my curves. And even if I want to adjust my color, maybe I want to make it my shadows a little bit colder, my highlights a little bit warmer, I might do it with my colored curves, doing warmer shadows, cooler shadows, warmer highlights. If it was a color image, that would have been more pronounced. But you can see what I'm doing. So if you are thinking about rule-based presets and thinking of not touching some of those sliders, but putting stuff on top, curves is very often a good place to go. So a lot of my own presets that I use often, I build it around curves so that I can stack that on top of my normal edit. And then it doesn't touch my light panel and it doesn't touch my color panel if I don't put those in. Hope that makes sense. Does that answer your question? Any other questions? while we're busy looking at questions. We're pretty much done with our edits. So I'm happy to look at any other questions you have. No questions? Everybody happy? Are you going to be building your own presets, or at least looking at using them? Good. Just in summary, maybe just don't go all in and apply somebody else's presets to your images. At the most, if you're looking at somebody else's presets that you get somewhere, just look at what they do, apply them onto your image, go through the sliders, see what that preset did. Try to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and then probably what I would suggest is make your own presets based on some ideas you get from these other presets. But don't just blindly go and apply somebody else's presets, because what they want to achieve there might not be applicable to your exact image. Okay, so it's good looking at other presets, it's good looking at what other people are doing when they're editing, but just keep in mind that the end result you're after and also the starting point of your image could be very different to what they're doing. So understanding what they're doing and not just blindly applying what they're doing is a better place to be. Good. And I hope it saves you a lot of time. Create some presets based on things that you very often do when you're doing the same things. It saved me a lot of time, and yeah, I like using presets. Good. Everybody happy? Have a great evening, everybody. We'll give it a couple of seconds and then call it a night if there's nothing new. All good? Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for watching. I will see you next week. You as well, Craig. Thanks. Thanks for joining. Pleasure, pleasure. I will see you next week for another session.